I called the Tuesday, December 10th, 2019 regular council meeting to order. This is a council meeting of the Portsmouth City Council. And I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand as Pastor Mark Neppel of Restore Church leads us in a invocation. Then I'll ask the entire audience to stand as we pledge allegiance to our American flag.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, before I pray, I'd like to thank our city council members, each of you, for the work you do. Like most residents, I don't get a chance to come to every city council meeting, but I keep up with our YouTube channel. And I've noticed that everybody on our council seems to be involved in many boards, PPIC, EDA. You're constantly working, and I know that a lot of times you work long hours outside of another job to better our community. And so I thank you for all that you guys do on a weekly basis that often goes unthanked. And our church appreciates it, and I appreciate it as a member of the community. Could we pray? God, thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to be a part of the people's work. We thank you that we live in a community where we have the freedom to observe our government at work. We have the freedom to speak out publicly about the things we appreciate and maybe the things that we don't, without fear of, Lord, anything coming our way. Thank you for those who've shown up tonight, Lord, to be invested and involved in local government. Thank you for our leaders. And God, I pray that you would give them wisdom, give them clarity, give them direction on the easy decisions as well as the difficult decisions. Thank you for what they've done in the past. Pray you continue to bless them in the future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have an electronic roll call. And to my colleagues on council, please indicate your presence by hitting the yes button. Councilman Glover. He's on? Oh, okay. We have 6 present, 1 absent.
Yes, sir.
Our next item of business is the approval of minutes, and we'll do this with one motion. We have the minutes of a call meeting of November the 25th, 2019, the minutes of a call meeting of November 26, 2019, and the minutes of a regular meeting November 26, 2019. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Tonight we have 2 presentations. The first is recognition of foster parents. City Council, Portsmouth City Council decided a year ago to recognize all the foster parents in Portsmouth. And Dr. Patton?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to call Mrs. Pamela Littlehill, who is the Director of Social Services, to make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. And this is our last presentation for the season. So again, thank you for the opportunity of letting us recognize what some wonderful people do. Our first and last family that we have tonight is Ms. Shannon Price and Elijah Stewart Eastman. Would you please come forward? The Price and Eastman family have been fostering with the Portsmouth Department of Social Services since September of 2015. They have fostered thus far 8 children. The Price and Easton family felt that they were called by a higher power to foster children, and they wanted the opportunity to give children a second chance at a stable and loving home environment. They accepted the placement of an infant into their home, who they fostered from the age of 4 months to 3 years old. They did an excellent job of supporting him and worked with him towards reaching all of his challenging developmental milestones. They sought services that would assist him in overcoming challenges and that they deserve for his developmental delays. They supported him in maintaining contact with his biological family, and they were committed to being available to him as an adoptive home should the need arise. The Price and Easton family have also worked well with youth that were diagnosed with ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder. They have also accepted the placement of a 5-year-old male who had disruptive behaviors and resulted in several school suspensions from the school bus, classroom difficulty, and also he experienced several learning delays. The foster parents were required to participate in vigorous schedules by attending several school meetings, phone conferences, and therapy appointments in order to assist this youth and become stabilized. As a result of their commitment and dedication, it resulted in a reduction of behavioral incidents for this child. The Price and Eastmans ultimately hope to expand their family through our foster and adoption care program. They remain dedicated to providing permanency to youth in care, and they are a great asset to the Portsmouth Department of Social Services. So we thank you.
What we have learned over the last year is that Portsmouth is a city of love. Philadelphia may claim the title because of the etymology of their name, the city of brotherly love, but they have nothing on Portsmouth. And we see that love with our foster parents, and we thank them from the bottom of our heart for the love that they have given to our children here in Portsmouth. And thank you again. I'm going to ask you all if you would like to say something.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I encourage each and every one of you, if it fits your home, to sign up and try, to be foster parents, because it's a wonderful thing to give children a second chance and, give them a foundation to grow upon. Thank you.
This is a small token of our appreciation and our love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. You're welcome. Our next item is also a presentation. It's a presentation of special lapel pins to our newly appointed members to our Portsmouth boards and commission. We have, golly day, maybe 50 boards and commissions close to that. And we want to recognize those people who serve because they give their scarcest resource, and that's their time. And so this is a small way for us to start off their service on the particular board or commission of saying thank you. And Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas Burke will make the presentation.
Thank you.
And Deborah?
With the following, please join the Vice Mayor at the Sergeant-at-Arms desk, please, when I call your name. With the Community Criminal Justice Board, Mr. Sergio Neal and Mr. Ronnie Peterson. With the Parks and Recreation Commission, Mr. Jeffrey Barber. With the Supplemental Retirement Board, Mr. Joel Hawkins. And with the Economic Development Authority, Ms. Kathy Drury and Mr. Neil Barber.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a good-looking group of citizens here, and being a person who started my interactions in city government, well, in the city actually, serving on boards and commission. I understand what you do. You're volunteering a great deal of your time. We've met with some of you in interviews, and others we've collectively agreed to make the appointment. So we appreciate you being here tonight. We know you're going to do great things to help us to be a whole city. And if anyone would like to speak tonight on what you plan to do, Sergio, you will speak for the group.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you for this appointment. A lot of times, we sit at home and try to figure out how to help our city as citizens, make it better for all. And this is one of the ways we can get it done. I tell people all the time, sitting at home complaining is one thing, but being a part of the solution is a totally different. So this is another way you can be a part of the solution to help Portsmouth grow.
Thank you all. And thank you for your service. We appreciate you. Merry Christmas to each of you. Okay.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our last council meeting of the year. And I'll say this twice. We want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a very prosperous New Year. Many of you have signed up to speak. We do have 2 public hearings which you can speak at without having signed up. And at this point, I'll ask our city clerk to read the protocol for speakers.
City council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the city council as a body rather than to any particular member of the city council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item on the agenda are 2 public hearings. And public hearings, again, I'll emphasize, once I open the public hearing, you may come to the lectern and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. You do not have to have signed up in advance. Our protocol for public hearings is to give the applicant, these are 2 zoning issues, 10 minutes to present his or her application. Then followed by any comments by the city manager and her staff, any questions by city council, and then I'll open the public hearing. Because the applicant for both of these are the same person, that person will have 20 minutes, and we'll just cover the presentation for both of these items. And will you read the first item, please? And
Yes.
the second. We'll
Yes, sir.
do them both.
Item A, Z 1906, Woodland Park. Mark Houston Ricketts of AES Consulting Engineers is requesting to rezone approximately 31.4 acres located at 409 McLean Street from neighborhood mixed-use conditional to high-density urban residential in order to build 197 residential townhouse units. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property for mixed residential. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority. Item B, UP 1916, Woodland Park. Mark Houston Ricketts of AES Consulting Engineers requests a use permit to construct 197 townhouse residential units on approximately 31.4 acres located at 409 McLean Street. The property is zoned neighborhood mixed-use conditional, and the applicant is concurrently proposing a rezoning to the high-density urban residential zoning district. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property for mixed-use residential. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority.
Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant in the audience? If so, if you'll come to the lectern, you'll have 20 minutes. That's a combination of 10 minutes on each of these items.
Mr. Mayor? Madam
Will you
Vice
speak
Mayor?
into the mic, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Mark Ricketts. I'm with AES Consulting Engineers, and I represent my client, who is the Miller Group, who is proposing to develop this particular piece of property. While I appreciate the fact that I have 20 minutes to make the presentation, I won't take anywhere near that amount of time. Both of these are, as was specified, are related to each other. One is the rezoning of the property, and then the other one is the conditional use permit. Under the city ordinance, in order to build townhouses, a conditional use permit is required. So those are together and related to each other. So again, there's no need to belabor the point one versus the other. But again, as you can see on the board there, the applicant, the site there is currently zoned NMU, and again, we're looking to rezone it and then get the conditional use permit to build the townhouses. The property is located along McLean Street, and it's, do I have to advance the slides? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you very much. There are several photographs here that kind of show what the surrounding property is like. Right now, the property is not in use. It was a former school site. That school had been removed years and years and years ago, and it's pretty much empty. There are some trees on that site, that kind of thing. This is looking from the property to the north to the church that's along, and I apologize if I get this pronunciation wrong, Gygax Street. It's an undeveloped street in that particular area as well. Next slide, please. Again, this is looking on the left, the slide looking to the west. That's actually the Portsmouth campus of Tidewater Community College. That's their parking lot, which is across McLean Street. And then the property to the south there is actually Newport, the Newport development, and that's one of their stormwater management facilities actually adjacent there. As part of the preliminary work that's been done on this particular piece of property, we have in fact defined the limits of wetlands that are located on this particular piece of property. As you can see, the white dots represent the limits of the wetland boundary. All the development is proposed outside, or predominantly outside of that. There's less than 1 acre of wetlands impact that's proposed on this particular piece of property. MAP Environmental has done the work. As you can see, they've already had a preliminary meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers on the delineation, and the Army Corps of Engineers agrees with that particular delineation. We've not moved forward to doing the final paperwork on it, pending the approval of Planning Commission last month, and then City Council this month and in January. As far as the land use map is concerned, as you can see there, that the area is proposed for mixed residential. In this particular case, we'll be looking to develop it as strictly residential townhouses. The signs were posted on the property in accordance with the requirements of any sort of use permit or rezoning, and there are the photographs of the signs that were posted there. Yes, ma'am, please, I'm sorry. And then in this particular one, rather than, we're not going to go over the same slides again because these are so related, but this is the layout that we've proposed. We've done some of the preliminary layout, preliminary engineering work. We haven't done any of the detailed engineering work at this particular point. Obviously, that would be the next step in the process. But as you can see, we've laid it out so that it is a nicely arranged residential neighborhood. Again, if you look to the bottom of the image up there, that's the the Portsmouth campus of Tidewater Community College. Newport is to the north of us on the right-hand side there. Basically, what we've done is worked with staff to develop this particular layout, and then obviously take it to the Planning Commission last month. The units that are along McLean Street are designed to face McLean Street. That was a preference in the layout and the way that the neighborhood would be arranged. They will be accessed from the rear and the streets that are built there. All the major streets in the subdivision are going to be public streets. If you look, the two interior blocks where there's an alley, a private alley behind those 2 blocks. Those will, again, will be private for access to those particular units there. They will be accessed from the back of the unit. Again, you can see where we propose our stormwater management facility, which is the red line on that particular layout shows that's the same line as, that's the wetland line, basically, is what that is. So also, when you look at this, if you see kind of right in the center, the little pink area that is bounded by the, it has a red line all the way around it. The pink area is where the predominant area of wetlands impacts will be. These are the types of units that will be constructed there. There are two general types of townhouse units that will be built there. This is an example of one of them that shows the facade, the types of materials, basically the elevation. When you look at the layout, this is a 4-unit building. There are some units that have 5, or there are some buildings that have 5 units, some that have 3, or some that have 4. So I just wanted to point out the fact that this is a specific 4-unit building. An artist rendering of basically what it would look like with the access in the front. This is the other model that's proposed out there, which is the Hepburn model. Again, it has similar features, but different colors, different textures, different materials that will be used, whether it be for the facade itself, the siding, the roofing, and that kind of thing. And all that was exhibited to Planning Commission. But the concept is to build them in accordance with this particular material palette. And again, this would be looking at one of those units that's along McLean Street, if you will. The access will, or they will face McLean Street, and then the access will be from the rear of the unit. These are the conditions that were placed on the approval from the Planning Commission. Number 2 was actually updated, and we worked with staff between the Planning Commission meeting and now, where we have come up with a fence that would be acceptable out there. It's an option at this particular time, but we have agreed to a particular style of fence that would be worked out there, that would be placed out there. And we're happy during the development review process, the site plan process and the review, to work with the staff on making sure that it's an attractive community. So I told you I would be less than 20 minutes. I'm here to answer any questions that you
Thank you,
have.
sir.
A representative of the Miller Group is here if you have specific questions for them, or even Ryan Holmes, we can answer those questions.
Thank you. To my colleagues, any questions of the applicant? Elizabeth Simmons, Councilwoman Simmons has the floor.
Thank you, sir. Not really a question, but as the Economic Development Authority liaison, I've seen these plans for a year or more now, and I just wanted to say we're so happy this is finally coming to fruition, and I think this will be the Miller Group's first residential development in the city, and we want to welcome them to more development in the city. We know the Miller family's had a lot of investment in Portsmouth for a long time, but this will be a first in residential, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
and we've enjoyed working with Economic Development and the staff as well, so thank you very much.
The chair recognizes Councilman Clark.
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's directed directly for you or the city to answer, but I think they look great. But for example, we just saw the ones that face McLean Street.
Yes, sir.
And all the accesses in the rear.
Yes, sir.
Do we know if the trash collection would be on McLean Street or to the rear? Because the reason I ask that is since it's a townhouse, if it was on McLean Street side, if somebody wanted to put their can out back, they'd have to go around other people's houses to get there.
I don't know the specific answer to that question. However, my thought would be, since that will be a public street behind it, that the trash collection could be made from the public street behind it where the driveways
And
and
that's
access.
why I
would be.
think it should be. I was
Yes,
just
sir.
curious. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you.
Dr. Patton.
Mayor, my Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Deputy City Manager Robert Baldwin will come forward with a few comments.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, and members of council. And since you took the comments from the applicant for both, I will go ahead and speak to both applications in terms
Please.
of what happened with the Planning Commission. So this item did go, both the rezoning and the use permit went to the Planning Commission for public hearing at their meeting on November the 5th. And the Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend approval on both. I would point out to you in the use permit, there were a couple of modifications to the original proposed conditions, and I'll just speak to them. They're very minor. There was a condition related to the fencing that might be potentially erected along the McLean Road frontage. There was some confusion about whether or not the intent of the original condition was to mandate a fence or to allow a fence. So we just clarified the condition in your packet, said it was it's a may erect a fence in the event that the developer chooses to erect a fence. Again, we were not mandating a fence be built along McLean. So I want to clarify that that's just, it's their option. They would come back through the planning department for approval of that. The other condition was just really related to the way the units, the type of units, the colors, how they would relate to each other. And we just did a simplified condition. That was recommended of the planning commission by the applicant, and the staff had no objection to that change. And that's all spelled out in your materials provided for you. And with that, the planning commission did recommend approval subject to the 7 conditions that were contained in the staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Baldwin? Councilman Battle.
What's the impact on the traffic?
The impact on traffic? Well, this, application was reviewed by our engineering department, engineering technical services department, taking a look at the traffic, and they concluded that there is more than sufficient capacity along McLean and along Greenwood to handle the traffic to be generated from this project.
And how many parking spaces are involved?
Well, this will be parking for each unit. We haven't gotten into the the final details with the site plan, but we'll be looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 2 parking spaces per unit.
Any further questions of Mr. Baldwin? Thank you, sir. We'll take these one at a time. So the first public hearing will be on AZ 19-06. And for protocol reasons, would you read that caption again? Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Z 1906 Woodland Park. Mark Houston Ricketts of AES Consulting Engineers is requesting to rezone approximately 31.4 acres located at 409 McLean Street from neighborhood mixed-use conditional to high-density urban residential in order to build 197 residential townhouse units. The future land use map of the bold Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property for mixed-use residential. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, you do not have to have had signed up to speak, and I now open the public hearing. Is there anybody present who wants to speak on this matter? If you do, please come to the lectern, and you'll have 5 minutes. Please state your name.
Hi, Joanne Clark. I live in Churchland. As a matter of record, I did sign up early at about 2 o'clock to speak.
She's on the speaker list.
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm here as a stakeholder, a taxpayer, and a volunteer with the city. I like seeing new development, and this new development does look very promising. But what's in the packet and the 48 pages that go with it don't bother me as much as what's not in the packet. There are no real detailed impact studies on this development. Nowhere in here does it indicate how many warm bodies, how many adults will be in this property, how many children, the ages, and more importantly, how many daily uses of leaving and coming and going as far as traffic goes. Usually those are all included in a rezoning, and I was surprised not to see them. I think you are tasked with saving our, being the good stewards of our tax money, but I don't think that you could in any way possible make a decision on this project without knowing what the full cost of the project's going to be for infrastructure cost. There's a 5, 10, and 20-year plan of what infrastructure costs are with all residential development. I don't know that we've ever addressed those. I know they've been addressed in other cities. One of my big concerns is, of course, the impact of traffic on McLean Street. You've already got the campus there with coming and goings of students. You've got Newport. If you're talking about 2 adults in every unit, and it's going to take 2 to actually pay for this, if you judge by per capita, to get a mortgage for this particular townhome, it's going to take 2 adults in each unit. And we're talking about, if you round it out, 400 people. That's a lot of trips every day coming on McLean Street. So I have some concern about that. It seems to me that eventually they would need some kind of a signaled intersection. They would need a crosswalk to get to the college, because obviously it's right across the street from the college. And another thing that I don't see is what they're doing for the children that will be in these 2- and 3-bedroom units. There is on the map earlier depicted some playground equipment, but they didn't say how much and where it would go. I hope it's not in the pink area. Also, the proximity of wetlands. More than 50% of wetlands are on this site, but yet the builder decided to put slab construction for these townhouses. And I do have some concern about that. If Matthew was to blow back into town, or a storm like Matthew, the first floor of 197 units could be wiped out. I hope that we take that in consideration as well when designing any drainage, the proper drain pipes and storm drains that go on this project. I guess the other thing that I was concerned about was the location. I understand about Build One, the comprehensive plan Build One, and I understand that this is in the entertainment district or adjacent to it. And I really wonder if this is the best project for this site. I can just imagine when you do get the entertainment district up and running, residents complaining about traffic and noise. So I hope that you will take into consideration my concerns. These are concerns that will affect everybody who pays taxes in the city. And I hope that it's not so much what they're building, but how they build it. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And we do have another person that's signed up to speak, and that's Donna SIA. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. Ordinance number 19-452 is supposed to be for the public to be heard by the elected on whether or not we give our consent for you to allow rezoning and a use permit. Applications of the AES consulting engineers. This consulting firm wants to rezone 31.4 acres of land located at 409 McLean Street. These 41.4 acres of land is part of the 50 acres for the entertainment center. And the consultant engineers are using 197 residential townhouse units request to prepare the way for the entertainment center that they want to be built. The comprehensive plan's designation for this land is for mixed residential use, not a high-density urban residential use. The problem with this rezoning and use permit request lacks a thorough investigation, as remarked before, on how this project will be affecting our city. Here's what this high-density urban residential area will cause. It will cause our city failure to thrive over the long term with the continued one development type of choice. The EDA commissioners have failed to understand our community needs to have different types of development and different types of density. Since there are people on the commission have relationships with the elected, their main priority is to please those who help them either get elected or appointed. I didn't see how the developer is addressing overcrowding, lack of privacy, noise, and crime. How is the overcrowding of the schools addressed in this request? How is the poverty issue being addressed in this request? This is a haphazard way to grow Portsmouth. These developers are making an urban sprawl. Another issue is the people's ability to socialize. The elected and appointed have decentralized our city. We have no connection with the town center. In addition, all the people's money is being spent on purpose to decentralize our city. The city's resources are inefficient to maintain the municipal services. So how are the people anticipating to live in these 197 townhouses going to be cared for? There are limited services for the people living here now. The lack of oversight in the work of the port has caused the people a loss of $2 million a year in tax revenue from the lawsuit with the Virginia International Gateway. The lack of oversight in the work of the port caused the people to have to pay tolls every time they leave the city and return home. This project is all about making money off the citizens for the state and certain people. This plan is about getting the entertainment center and the gambling casino ready for construction by using this tool. It is not about the people who will be living in these townhouses. This plan is not about a smart growth plan for the benefit of the people in the city. Don't forget about the $5 million revenue note the city made to finance EDA's acquisition of Victory Crossing property. What the people need is to get back to our tradition of suburban living. We, the people, also need to get back to the tradition of moral values and caring about one another. We, the people, say to the elected, we do not give our consent for this project. We say to you, vote no.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we go to our next speaker, Councilwoman Simmons has asked for the floor. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's normally our protocol here never to argue with speakers, but I feel compelled to make some comments for the benefit of the public. Mrs. Clark made a comment that made me think about, she commented about people that they wouldn't know about the entertainment district, and in fact, the public needs to be aware that the Miller Group was made aware of the decision to create an entertainment district across McLean Street from this location some months ago before it was made public, and they were given an additional 60-day window to determine whether they wanted to proceed. They did their due diligence and decided, in fact, that made it an even better place for them to build their project, and they wanted to continue. And to Mrs. SIA, to say again, this development is not in the entertainment district. It is across the street, across McLean Street from the entertainment district. They are not the same property.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue the public hearing. Anybody desire to speak on Z19-06, please come to the lectern. You'll have 5 minutes.
Cliff Page, 465 Primrose. I wasn't going to speak on this tonight because I was really questioning what this thing was going to look like. That has a lot to do with it. When it comes out and says this is what we're going to do, we want to see what the engineers, the architects are going to do. So if you give me some forbearance here, I'm going to try to compress both of these issues into some comments about both of them. You can take it either way. You're going to be voting on both of them. I was on, as you know, for 5 years as charter member of the Design Review Committee, and I'm a designer by profession, and my fingerprints are all over the downtown in reviewing projects. I consider what I've seen here from a land use and from an architectural standpoint to be rather mediocre. This is a large piece of property. Now they showing that it's in the wetlands and so on, but they have some retainment pools. If you have all that land, and I know what it's like out there, this was some of the worst planning this city has ever done around Bidawee. And believe me, let me tell you one thing right off the bat. I am absolutely opposed to what you want to call an entertainment center and everybody in this city calls a casino. This is a major impact that's negative to this city, any way you cut it. But what I look at here is if you're going to do retainment ponds, why didn't you turn that into some sort of little lakes that flow around? And why didn't you plan on something that would be park back behind these places? The use of this property, just from a site plan, and I don't know all that much about it, but it's mediocre. Now, as far as how it's going to be developed, we've seen all this stuff going on in the downtown, and I tell you, I don't know what's behind the sheetrock, even if it's double sheetrock, but I consider all this stuff that's been put up over the last few years with wood construction They're fire traps. Are we going to have steel construction inside of these with 2x4s and rafters and all? Are you going to use wood? Now, from a design standpoint, this is just cookie cutter boxes. They don't have any appeal, no architectural merit or interest or anything in that. Also, these properties are lined up in the back. They look like English row houses in Liverpool or something. This is just unacceptable from a design standpoint. You could enclose those backyards with walls and give people a sense of this is my property. This is my little space. They don't even do that. It's just poor design. But the whole area should never, ever have been developed like this. I wrote a paper when I was out at TCC to Dr. DeCroce. I said she wanted to move the campus. The Republican Party wanted to take over the site out there. And I said, look, if you want to do it, move it down to Frederick Boulevard. But that's not the best site. I'd like to see City Hall down there. The second place you could move it was out to TCC, or out to where it is today, at Victory Crossing. But I said develop it in concert with the golf course. Turn it into a big park-like setting. Have some businesses out, or some businesses out there that were industrial business, but they were satellites, places for the students at the campus so they could transition and they could be employed and all, and make this whole place a garden. Didn't happen. Our former city manager went out there and started building a lot of stuff. And the last thing I want to say is this. Cavalier Manor had the most elite black neighborhood in this city, and a lot of people are concerned over there about that. And this is right in their front yard. And what goes on over here at this site is very important. Now, there's certain people out there in Cavalier Manor want to have a casino. But there's a lot of people over there that are concerned about a lot of other things that are going on there, and they've seen their father's property turned to their son's property, to their sex. In the neighborhoods, a lot of them, people are complaining about how they're being devalued. These are things that I consider sharecropper homes. You get the taxes from an individual who owns them all, but everybody else, even though they may have a mortgage or the tenants, they're the sharecroppers. And I don't like this kind of thing. I think it's a wrong progress in this city. I don't know that it is progress. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to, please? Our protocol requires no demonstration, please. Let's be kind to the speakers as we proceed. Are there any other speakers that would like to speak at this public hearing on Z 19-06? Any other speakers? This public hearing is closed so that this matter can be before us for our consideration and discussion. Is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly made and seconded, which is to approve. This is on first reading. It will come back on second reading in January. Any further discussion? Ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to the public hearing on UP-19-16. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that application, please?
Yes, sir. UP 1916 Woodland Park, Mark Houston Ricketts of AES Consulting Engineers requests a use permit to construct 197 townhouse residential units on approximately 31.4 acres located at 409 McLean Street. The property is zoned neighborhood mixed-use conditional, and the applicant is concurrently proposing a rezoning to the high-density urban residential zoning district. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth comprehensive plan designates this property for mixed residential. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority.
Thank you. This is the second of the two public hearings, and this is on the conditional use permit. And I'll open the public hearing, and we do have one person that's signed up to speak, and that's Donna SIA. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. I just want to add about, is there any idea about how far the house is going to be off the ground, because it's wetland? And I'm seeing a lot of times in Portsmouth that whomever is responsible for ditches and pipes to get water flowing off the property is not being done very well here in this city. So now they're planning to build houses. Are they going to be up off the ground? Are they going to have the drainage put in right? Who's going to oversee that? So that's what I'm concerned about, is the groundwork on keeping flooding and water seepage, mold, and whatever else in this area, since we don't have very good already.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, this is a public hearing on UP-19-16. Is there any other person that wants to speak on this matter? If you do, please come to the lectern, and you'll have 5 minutes. Any other speakers on UP-19-16? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. And so that we can get this matter before us on its first reading tonight, with the second reading being in January, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
This brings us to City Manager's report, and the first item is 19-453, which is a consideration of the adoption of a certain ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $6,548,276 in savings from the pension obligation bonds refunding to the FY 2020 debt service fund and transferring $1,466,723 of said amount to the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System, and to $5,081,553 of said amount to the Portsmouth Fire Police Retirement System.
So that we can get this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. We're ready for the discussion, and we do have two speakers, and the first is Mark Udalgi-Otrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I'm here tonight to express my appreciation to you for taking what is a windfall to the city and allocating it responsibly. Due to some excellent advice from the city's financial advisors, the city took advantage of lower interest rates to refinance the pension obligation bonds which we acquired several years ago. And this has brought in the immediate money that's under consideration tonight, and will continue to provide additional revenue to the city for the next several years. Now, it would have been easy to purchase votes from people with an interest in having their retirement benefits increased. But council decided to take the more difficult path and showing fiscal responsibility by reallocating these proceeds to putting more into the pension funds themselves. I think this will pay us dividends over the long haul because the pension funds are not funded at the 80% level that the rating agencies like to see, and even farther from the 100% level that will be necessary to pay all outstanding obligations over the life of these retirement funds. So thank you for being fiscally responsible and looking out for the best interests of the citizens, the taxpayers, and the retirees.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Donna SIA, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 19-453 is an ordinance to appropriate $6.5 million from the refunding of the pension obligation bond. Okay, there are 8 loans in the debt service fund. So what pension obligation bond did the savings come from? How many years was this pension obligation bond for? Where is the explanation about this pension obligation bond located? There is a CAFRA. Why aren't the details from the CAFRA and the debt service fund attached to this ordinance to keep the people informed? $1.4 million of the $6.5 million is going to the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System, and $5 million is going to be to the Portsmouth Fire and Police Retirement System. Okay, why weren't the details attached to show the balance of both the Supplemental Retirement System and the Portsmouth Fire and Police Retirement? How much money is needed to have both of these retirement systems up to date for its needed funds? At the public hearing on November the 12th, the ordinance 19-412 gave the city manager permission to use $475,000 from the interest saved from the debt service fund to be applied to the rental of land for a police facility. There was no explanation about where this interest came from. How come there are so many different interest-bearing accounts? How come we the people are not getting details since we are the employers of this city's public trust? To support this lack of transparency happened at the last work session with the discussion regarding the retirement presentation. The facts and figures were not shown to help Councilman understand his questions. There was no meaningful financial disclosure regarding retirement budget, expenses such as an independently audited financial statement in preparation for this review for the council and the public. Here tonight is an effort to bypass any full disclosure of the people's money. The Finance Committee was deleted. The auditor's position has also been deleted. There has been so many employees leaving the Finance Department. We have an interim finance director now. There's something amiss in the Finance Department. There's something definitely wrong in the leadership. The elected and appointed have forgotten to obtain all information on ordinances before they sit down to vote on anything. This is why the elected and appointed need to get the people's consent on everything you vote on tonight. What we have learned, the elected are going to do whatever they want without our consent, so they are not upholding their oath of office they swore to uphold. Just wondering why the elected don't uphold their oath of office that was given to them by we the people. We gave you the duty to serve us when you got elected and to enforce the Virginia Constitution's Bill of Rights.
Thank you, ma'am. We're ready to continue council's discussion on this matter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, which is to adopt the ordinance, please indicate by voting yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Next item is 19-454, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance, And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes. An ordinance accepting a donation from the Elizabeth River Project in the amount of $31,612.52 and appropriating said funds in the Paradise Creek Nature Park project line item in the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget for use by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism for the continued development of the nature park.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption.
And we're ready for our discussion, and we do have one speaker, and that is Mark Godalgi-Otrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. The partnership between the City of Portsmouth and the Elizabeth River Project is probably the finest example of a public-private partnership that truly benefits the public. Since our initial agreement, memorandum of understanding with the Elizabeth River Project, the former Superfund site at the south side of Craddock has become a fabulous asset to the city in terms of recreation, conservation, and aesthetics. This latest funding item just enhances what has evolved over the last 7 years from a reclaimed area with just the skeletons of what would become trees and shrubs, habitat for wildlife, and an outstanding recreational area in the city of Portsmouth. It's open every day to the public. It's one of the areas where you can bring your dog to get out in the outdoors. You have to be on a leash. The dog has to be on a leash. But my family has availed ourselves of this opportunity, and whenever we're there, we see others doing the same. So I thank you for maintaining this partnership, which is a benefit to all citizens of Portsmouth.
Thank you, sir. We'll continue our discussion on this motion, which is to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? I do have a disclosure. I serve on the board of directors for the nonprofit Elizabeth River Project, which is a nonprofit. Is there a conflict with me voting, Mr. City Attorney?
No, Your Mayor.
Thank you. All right, further discussion, ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And the motion carries. Which brings us to item 19-455, the consideration and adoption of a certain ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
An ordinance accepting radiological emergency preparedness program funds in the amount of $700 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and appropriating said funds in the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
We're now at item 19-456, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance And Madam Clerk, please read the caption of that ordinance, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance transferring the sum of $57,992 from the salary line item of the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services section of the FY 2020 General Fund budget to the FY 2020 section of the FY 2020 General Fund budget to the FY 2020 Grants Fund to serve as the required local match for local emergency management program grant.
Thank you. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly made and seconded. We are ready for our discussion, and we do have one registered speaker, and that is Donna SIA. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 19-456 is an ordinance to transfer almost $58,000 from the salary line item of the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency section, General Fund budget, to the year 2020 Grants Fund. This amount of money will be a local match for a local emergency management program grant. How come here again, there's no comprehensive information to inform the people of the budget of the Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Department? Why is the money coming from the salary line item of the department? Does this statement mean we have a shortage of employees in the Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Department? What is the program grant that is being sought? Who is providing the grant? What is the equipment needed that the grant is paying for? Let's become transparent in the use of the people's money.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue our discussion on the motion, which is to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
And we're at item 19-457, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the consideration of a certain ordinance. And would you read the caption of the ordinance, please?
Yes. An ordinance accepting funding for the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $3,000 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2020 Social Services Fund for the Family Partnership Meeting Incentive Program.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And that motion,
Okay, we're going to have you vote again.
all right, we'll revote. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
We're at item 19-458, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's the consideration of adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting an Emergency Food and Shelter National Board Program grant in the amount of $12,400 from the Department of Homeland Security and appropriating said sum in the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Social Services to assist eligible Portsmouth citizens who have emergency food, shelter, or utility needs.
So that we can get this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded, and we are ready for our discussion. And we do have one registered speaker, and that's Donna SIA. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 19-458 is an ordinance to accept a program grant of $12,400 from the Emergency Food and Shelter National Board of the Department of Homeland Security for use by the Department of Social Services to assist citizens with emergency food, shelter, or utility needs. On November the 12th, there was a resolution 414B to approve the city's 2020 federal legislative packet for the 116th Congress. The elected opposed the federal public policy position regarding the proposed regulation change on providing eligibility for free school meals under a proposed overhaul to the food stamp program. See the money for $12,400 given to the city for emergency food, shelter, or utility needs? See how much we are depending on the government for food? Why aren't we promoting self-sufficiency and growing and processing our own food supply? Look at the land in the public housing communities and the schoolyards. All this land can be used for the people to be trained by the school classes on nutrition. We have an extension agent from Virginia Tech that provides education and training. We need to start teaching people, young and old, how to invest in our own welfare before the emergency situation arises.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue our discussion on the motion, which is to adopt the ordinance. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We're at item 19-459, which is the consideration of a motion. And would you read the caption, please?
Yes, sir. Adoption of a motion to implement the 2020 calendar of city council meetings.
So that we can get this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion before us, which has been duly made and seconded. We're ready for a discussion, and we do have two registered speakers. The first speaker is Mark Godolgi-Utroski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Where'd he go? Did he leave?
All right. Oh, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I have two concerns about the proposed calendar of city council meetings. Both of them relate to the retreat. For the last several years, council has met at a remote location where the opportunity for citizens to observe the proceedings has been limited. There has been no video recording of those proceedings, not that they would make exciting television, but there is some value in having a minute-by-minute record of the conversations that occur among our elected officials when they're not readily accessible to the public. The facility itself is nice enough. However, I've not done an overnight there, so I can't speak to the comfort of the beds. But the other concern related to that location is that one of your colleagues is not particularly comfortable with the setting. And this is one of those items where, like religion, majority does not rule. Everybody has individual needs, and sometimes the needs of the one are more significant than the needs of the many. So I would urge you to heed your colleagues' concerns and see if there may be a way to have a retreat that accommodates his needs. I consider them legitimate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Donna SIA, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 19-459 is to make a motion to implement the 2020 calendar of city council meetings. On November the 26th, I gave a presentation on how I was affected by the discussion on the draft calendar for 2020. The discussion on how to hold a community meeting became long and drawn out without a vote. The public hearings are for the people to give their consent or oppose any ordinance or resolution. There are no educational meetings to give the public insight into the financial work of the city. The elected have decided to put this calendar motion on the agenda tonight without going back to the work session to clarify anything not agreed upon. In addition, the City Council will agree to go to Wakefield Conference Center in Wakefield, Virginia, to get out of the range of the people to make its own agenda for the coming year. Again, the elected will be denying the people's right to self-govern. At the last two retreats in Wakefield, the city councils did all the decision-making with the planning council's facilitator. The decisions were made without any citizens' input or consent. The city council has been the most offensive group of elected that we the people have ever witnessed. They have infringed on our rights without any humility or concern. They have not valued anyone in our city. The law of the jungle reigns supreme in the mindset of these elected city council members.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue our discussion on the motion. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
We come to item 19-460. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that consists of the consideration and the adoption of two ordinances. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We'll take these one at a time. We'll take 19-460A first. And will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to reappropriate encumbered but unexpended funds from the FY 2019 Portsmouth Public Schools General Fund budget in the total amount of $237,202 to the FY 2020 Portsmouth Public Schools General Fund budget.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly made and seconded. We're ready for discussion, and we do have speakers that have signed up. We have three. The first is Mark Udalgi-Otrowski. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow citizens. I'm speaking to item B.
This is A. You have signed up for A.
I intended to sign up for B.
Okay, well, let me ask you to sit down, and I will recognize you at B.
Thank you.
We all make mistakes. And Donna SIA is our next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. A is an ordinance to reappropriate $237,000 of encumbered funds not spent from last year's general fund of the school and transferring it to this year's general fund budget for the schools. So the general fund budget for the year 2018-19 was over $145 million. That means the school system spent, well, a little bit less than the $145 million of the general fund budget. So that means $145,090,87 is left under the encumbered funds. 19-460 is an ordinance to acknowledge the right of the city to get back over $3 million from the school that isn't encumbered or spent. That leaves the school system having over $141 million at the end of the year 2019. From the $3.6 million that the city has taken back from the school, the city will appropriate $723,000.
Ma'am, we're considering A, not B.
All right, have I moved on?
Yes, ma'am.
From A?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll come back.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Sergio Neal, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, could I defer to B? I read the captions wrong, and she did ask me to clarify earlier.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. There are no other speakers. We'll continue our discussion amongst council. Any further discussion on the consideration of 19-460A? 19-460A. We have a motion on the floor that's been duly made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Now we're at 19-460B. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to, one, acknowledge the reversion to the city of funds in the amount of $3,632,494 that were originally appropriated by City Council to the PPS FY 2019 General Fund budget and were neither encumbered nor expended by PPS during FY 2019. And two, to appropriate $723,039 of said funds to the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget for 3 projects to benefit PPS, including the replacement of the Churchland High School track, the replacement of school bus security cameras, and the replacement of school furniture. And 3, to reserve the balance of said funds within the FY 2019 fund balance for future appropriations as City Council shall deem appropriate.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been duly made and seconded. And we do have registered speakers. And forgive me if I do not call your name because of the mix-up. The first speaker is Mark Godalgi-Yatrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes. This is on item B.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to correct my error. I came tonight with the intention of advocating for reservation of the unappropriated funds in the amount of $2.9 million for future use by the school board. But when I was in the work session tonight, I heard an idea that had more appeal to me. The mayor circulated an amendment for your consideration, and it achieves the same purpose that I had intended, but it does it in a more elegant way, I believe. That wording is that the balance of the reverted funds in the amount of $2,909,455 be, and the same hereby is, appropriated to the general fund of the Portsmouth Public Schools for use within the fiscal year 2019-2020. First of all, not only does it provide a cushion for the school system, but it shows good faith. It shows that those attempts earlier in the year to promote dialogue and cooperation between two bodies that have not had very amiable relations in recent times had some real effect. Councilmember Glover also offered a modification which I believe would have a similar effect to this. And as he stated in offering his proposal, it was to encourage more of a show of goodwill from the city council to the school board. I applaud you all. I applaud you both for recognizing that there is a way to make a permanent change in the dynamic that has, to a large extent, poisoned the discussions between the two elected bodies. And I hope that council as a whole will adopt some wording that carries out the spirit of these two proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Sergio Neal, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to ask for some clarity, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. So basically what I'm understanding is that only a portion of the money here would be returned to the school system, and then that 2.9 sum is going to be held by the city. And if that is the case, then I have some disdain with that. If this was new money that was asked of by the school board, I'm quite sure there will be some discussion as to why they need more money. But this is money that has already, was already directed that way, that they didn't spend, that I think, in all honesty, should be returned to them because of some of the new challenges that are arriving in our school system. There are things that are constantly coming up, constantly new challenges that have to be addressed, and they have to be paid for in some shape, fashion, or form. If we are going to, look at this wholeheartedly, we need to have good faith in our school system that they will spend the money as intended. I understand some of the history of money, between the school system, whatever the case might be, some of the concerns. However, but let's be honest, a lot of times the resources that our classrooms need go in jeopardy because of situations like this. And unfortunately, it puts our teachers in a hard spot when they don't have the resources that they need to really make our students the best that they can be. So with that being said, I encourage you all to return that money, that portion that's being held in reserve, back to the school system as well, so they can do what they need to do in order to achieve the goal. We have a city in which now been dubbed as 757, according to a report that came out in the news today, the renaming of Hampton Roads, particularly the city of Hampton, that looks a lot like Portsmouth, that has a great deal of the similar challenges. And, no throwing shade, but they have achieved the goal where they have their schools 100% accredited across the board because their city council and their school board understands the necessity to invest in public education. And I can tell you, because my son lives in Hampton with his mom, I'm a Hampton public schools parent, even though I live in Portsmouth myself, is that I've seen the challenges of what that school system had to go through, and it looked a lot like Portsmouth's. And I've raised my concerns with them, and finally they have started to see the light, and you see the results of what they have. Portsmouth can do the same thing, but it's going to take some work. Part of that work is to make sure the school system has the funding that it needs. Trust me wholeheartedly, I get the system of checks and balances. I personally have asked school board to make sure that when they're receiving the taxpayers' money that we pay in taxes, that they're doing what they need to do with it and what they say they're going to do with it. But at the same time, too, we shouldn't be having this constant struggle when we know the state of our schools. And when I say we, everybody that's elected, everybody that's appointed, every citizen in this city knows full well, they should know, I should say, what the state of the schools are. Anytime we are struggling, we have to have open interviews to hire teachers at this point, something should be going off and saying, why are we struggling to have people here? And I can tell you right now, because of stuff like this that comes out and that's made public, that it's not necessarily about the pay structure. It's more about what is the morale going to look like? What is my leadership team? And when I say the leadership team, the city council and the school board, how much do they value education? And if I was a new teacher coming out, I would say it would be hard for me to accept that, hey, yes, I would love to work in Portsmouth, but what is the relationship of my leadership? Because that's something that affects those classroom teachers, those bus drivers, those janitors, or whatever the case you might want to have. And they're, unfortunately, they're starting to wake up and say, what is my job going to look like in the future? Is our city truly going to invest in education? So I would ask of you to change the language in the last part, that let's make sure the school system gets the funding that they need and let them move forward in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Claude Parent, and sir, you have 5 minutes. Thank you, sir, for coming. Mr. Parent is the chairman of our school board.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Rowe and Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, and members of the council. Kind of surprised because I'm here to talk about the last part, which is 3, which says to reserve the balance of said funds within the 2019 fund balance for future appropriation the city council shall deem appropriate. Just for the members that are here tonight and how we got to this point. Tonight, you're going to be voting on to put $3.6 million of our school division's reversion fund. The school board has implored you to be able to keep these funds to use a little, as you've heard tonight, for some capital projects and to allocate the vast majority for our risk management reserve fund. Now, you know that you're in charge of that. That's $5.1 billion. Mr. Falk supplied to Mr. Ashby the documentation that you requested from him in order for us to receive the $2.9 million. That would be to take care of the shortfall that we have, which then would leave $2.2 million. Now, I'm here tonight to ask you to honor, and I hope that you're going to honor and change the wording to number 3 to reappropriate the $2,900,000, $455 to the risk management fund. And let me explain why. It seems like now that you're giving us the $3.6 million, that's great. But we're going to need to allocate the $2.9 million simply because we had this 3.6 because we had in the instructional line item additional teachers that we could not hire. So that's the reason why that we have this money. We need the $2.9 million because this year we had a 2.9 shortfall in risk management, which is your health insurance, which is your liability and your workman's comp, those 3. So if you subtract from the 5.1 and the 2. You subtract the 2.9 from 5.1, you're going to get 2.2. Now, that would leave us a shortfall if we have another year like we did this year of sickness at all of these workman comps. That would leave us a deficit of about $700,000. So then the board is requesting that you allocate the $2.9 million of that 3.6 to the risk management reserve fund that goes back to the city. You're in charge of that. So I don't know how the motion is going to change other than you're going to give the school system the $3.6 million, and then the board can then reallocate that, because we did it. We sent a resolution to you in October asking for that. We waited and waited and waited. We had a liaison meeting and we talked about it, and The agreement was that we provide you with the documentation, which we did. It was hand-delivered to Mr. Ashby. We didn't hear anything from you, but in December the 3rd, we get a letter that our request was denied. So I'm kind of confused tonight, and I'm sure the board will be. I would be happy that the city council would approve the total $3.6 million, and then we can take the 2.9 and just put it back in the reserve fund, because we don't know what next year is going to bring as far as hospital claims, workman's comp, or even the general liability. So I would be glad to entertain any questions, because I'm glad that you're going to reappropriate the full $3.6 million. I think that we could have taken care of that when we were supposed to have a liaison meeting with Mr. Clark and Lisa Lucas Burke, and then we sat there and they didn't come, and we found out that the city manager had canceled the meeting because somebody said that we changed the agenda to include risk management. I think that we could have ironed all of these things out and not go through all this drama.
Sir, your time is up.
But anyway, I'm glad that you're going to reappropriate the 3.6.
If you would stand there.
Sure.
And will you get the clock? Again, we typically don't debate people who speak.
Right.
But the ordinance as written and the motion does not appropriate all the money. And it appropriates all but 2.9 million. And there's a way to meet your request by amending the ordinance. We have people who have asked to speak, and the first speaker is Vice Mayor Lucas Burke.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Claude Parent, thank you for coming forth to us tonight.
Yes.
We did have some discussion with this with council in our public work session meeting tonight, and there was discussion about this matter.
Right.
So what our understanding, and just to make the public aware of how everything happens, June 30th is the end of our fiscal year, your fiscal year. And at that time, the school board has a responsibility to reappropriate any unencumbered funds, any unused funds back to the city council.
That's correct.
That's a law.
That's a law.
So June 30th, July 1 came, it didn't happen. We're right now at December 10th. We have been waiting 6 months for that fund to reappropriate back. If there was any time, at any point, from the time that you had claims or that you had funds that you needed to be expended, all that the school board had to do was submit the appropriate paperwork or the documentation to our city attorney, and they could have retracted any of that fund that you needed from the $5.1 million. It's our responsibility to make sure that the fiduciary responsibility of funds being reappropriated to the city happens, and that's what we have to do. So it's not our intent to keep any of your money. We want to make sure that you hold. We're not going to let you fall with any dime. But the responsibility of the city council is for you to reappropriate the funds back to the city council. Our city attorney and his team would review it, and then in January, we would make the decision to deem back to the school board. That's only 30 days. So if there's anything that's going to happen, I don't think you're going to get $2.9 million worth of claims in 30 days. And even if you did, we would make sure that you're whole with that. So we want to do the appropriate thing by law. You reappropriate to us, we review the information,
Correct.
And then we would encumber it back to you. That's how it's written in this resolution tonight, and that's how we plan to support it.
Now, the $2.9 million that we have previously asked for, and we provided the documentation, when are we going to receive that so we can pay our bills?
And I
Got a point of order, Mayor.
Hold on. What's your question?
It's not a question. The point
what
is,
is your point of order?
my point of order is, this is not a dialogue back and forth. The vice mayor had a statement to make. It's not a question for him to stand up and rebut her statements. At this point, we're making statements. There was no questions asked. His 5 minutes are up. His time should be up unless asked a question. I did not hear the vice mayor ask a question, so he should not be following back to what the vice mayor has said.
Okay.
I did not see this as a rebuttal, but I'll recognize your point of order. Let's recognize the next council person, and that's Councilman Glover.
Mr. Parent,
Yes, sir.
one of the things I just wanted, and this is a statement, First of all, I want to say that I supported and I proposed an amendment to this effect. As it was stated earlier tonight, we have a history, the school board and the city council, of not working collaboratively together on matters of finances.
Right.
And so what I intended to do with my recommended amendment is to put the past behind us.
Right.
And let's start anew and let's move forward.
Absolutely.
So what I recommended was, we have received the $3.6 million.
Correct.
And you all have submitted claims information as it relates to your health insurance, your risk management, in addition to the disability.
Correct.
And that totals about $2.9 million.
That's correct.
We have $5.1 million in the school board risk management reserve fund that is held by the city.
That is correct.
I had recommended that we pay the 2.9 back to you.
Okay.
And as a result, we take the we take from the $3.6 million that was returned back to us and put that 2.9 back into the risk management fund to make that whole.
That's great.
That also, on the other issues with the capital improvement program, improvement items, those are already in our CIP fund. So those dollars are going to come back to the school in the way of getting those things done.
Okay.
So that was the recommendation that I had made to my colleagues, and certainly I wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And that's what the board would like.
The chair recognizes Councilwoman Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that what Mr. Glover alludes to, that we had quite a discussion about at the 5 o'clock work session, is what will end up happening.
Yes, sir.
However, Mr. Ashby just got that big folder you just held up last week,
He got it
on
November-
Thursday.
He got it November
So-
20th. He got it November 20th. This was hand-delivered to him November 20th.
Okay. He got that very recently. It has not come along as the year has progressed. It didn't happen right after the end of the fiscal year. It happened in the last 10, 20 days. So what I want him to do is have a chance to review that, get those monies to the school system as promptly as possible. And what we discussed in the meeting was to come back in January, when we meet again in, 3 or 4 weeks. And by that time, Mr. Ashby will be able to say to us, we have gone over these things, we have sent this much money to the school system for their risk management program, for their overage. And then, I don't know, we may end up being able to put more in risk, more back to you, I don't know. But give the man a chance to go through the requests, and then we'll make the number the right number. I don't think, nobody wants to keep your money, but we want to do it the right way.
And we want the same thing.
To my colleagues on council, we have made this a debate, so don't get mad at me. All right? Now, the chair will recognize, and it's important that we do debate this, because we're talking about a very important part of our community, the education of our children.
Right.
And with that, the chair recognizes Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to the same topic, as it's been said, nobody has said to this point, including myself, that I do not want to give money back to the schools. I made a statement earlier in the work session that I think it should be bifurcated. At this point, the money's coming back to the city. When we get the proper information to go forward, then we can make a decision. As the Vice Mayor said, by law, this should have taken place back in July. The fiscal year ended June 30th. To the other point, us as an entire council, we voted to improve the 2020 budget. We increased it by $2.6 million to help with teacher salaries. So if we increase the budget for fiscal year 2020 by 2.6, now this 3.6 that goes back, that's on top of your 2020 budget. So in theory, that increases your 2020 budget because 2019 fiscal year is gone. And just to clear up some points, like we said, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke and myself are the liaisons to the school board. We have had multiple meetings with the liaisons from the school board. We thought we had this cleared up. The discussion was there with your CFO and the city attorney, and that's why the money was there. The money was designed to be drawn out when y'all needed it, based on the proper documentation. And that was our discussion at the last meeting, was until we had received the proper documentation.
Got it.
That meeting was prior to that, And if you think we can read a book in a couple of days, that's not going to happen. Why wasn't that book given to us July 1st? Okay, gave it to us on the 20th. You know, that's just too far past the line. So we've been trying to work with y'all. I know discussions. We also discussed how we disperse funds to y'all to change it in the summer months when the teachers weren't working. We've done what we can do to help and get along. But it always gets to, and you brought the point up that said that we canceled the meeting and didn't tell you. You need to go back into your own house and correct that. Your receptionist was given the letter at noon. If y'all showed up at 3 o'clock, your receptionist held onto the letter for 3 hours. That's an internal problem on your side and not ours. We made the proper notification, so don't stand in front of the public and act like we just ditched the meeting and didn't show up, because that's not the truth. I'm just trying to set the truth. Something was said. I just want the citizens to hear our side of it and what had occurred. So thank you for speaking tonight.
Councilman Battle.
And I'm only interested in one thing.
Yes, sir.
That you guys getting all unencumbered funds back. I understand the time and the laws involved, but we need to be able to do this in a better fashion than we're doing it. And I hope that we will in the future. But I know everybody up here wants to give all the money back.
Right. And just to,
Sir, we're good.
Okay.
We need to discuss
Okay.
this amongst ourselves.
okay,
Okay. And I'm going to recognize myself.
okay.
The fiscal year ends on June 30th. In governmental accounting, you have 45 days to close out the fiscal year. So if you're a governmental unit, you don't know that you have a surplus for 45 days. So that would be August the 15th. And August the 15th, the state code requires that any unspent money from the city appropriated to the school board for the last fiscal year be returned, not reappropriated, returned to the city. You've done that. You've done that. You've returned 3.6. I would feel more comfortable, and my position is that we amend paragraph 5 of the ordinance to read that the balance of the reverted funds in the amount of $2,909,455 be, and the same hereby is appropriated to the risk management fund established for the Portsmouth Public School System by the Portsmouth City Code. That's my position.
Thank you.
And I feel that it's important that we do that now. And if the ordinance is not amended, I'm not going to vote for the motion as it is now. It is not that I don't want you, I want you to get all your money tonight.
Right.
Because there's no guarantee in life.
Right.
And so with that, the chair, any other discussion on the motion? Is there any amendment, friendly or unfriendly? Councilman Clark.
Yes, the discussion I have, it's interesting how you brought this tonight at the beginning of our work session, but you did not even try to have a collective discussion with the liaisons of the school board to get the history of the meetings and what we were doing. So it's kind of a shot in the dark that this has been presented that, you know, if we wanted to, we could have had another presentation or meeting and discuss what had occurred, but nobody asked your liaisons, the vice mayor or myself, to discuss this item. Just arbitrarily at the beginning of the meeting night, you passed out some paperwork as to what you wanted to be done with it, not anyone else.
Well, that's a fair statement, but we act as a body, and we each have a right to offer amendments to any motion. And that is your right, that is my right. And as I stated to council, I was not aware that paragraph 5 did not appropriate all the funds until this morning. And I endeavored to get with each of you, and I called you about 10 to 12, so that nobody would be blindsided with what I thought was the appropriate thing to do. But we operate by consensus with majority rules. And we have a motion on the floor, and we're still debating the motion. Any further debate? Councilman Battle.
I don't think this is the proper time to talk about who's done who wrong. being heavy on pride and that sort of thing. The children are the most important thing here, and that's what we need to focus on.
Thank you.
Are you offering an amendment? Or you make that in the motion?
Yeah.
Order. This is not a public hearing. We have a motion on the floor. Council's debating the motion. Only council is speaking at this time. So that we limit debate. Yes, sir.
Do you want me to set up?
Yes. Do you still want the floor, Councilman Battle?
I don't want to be out of order, but I want the school board to get this financing as expedient as possible, and that's what I want.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question?
No.
Oh. Ms. SIA has signed up. I'm sorry, Ms. SIA. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Donna SIA, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 19-460B is to get back from the school $3,632,494, and the city will appropriate $723,039 to the Capital Improvement Fund for 3 projects. And these 3 projects are not listed in the Capital Improvement Plan for the Portsmouth Public School System for 2020. And these are replacement of the Churchland High School track, the replacement of school bus security cameras, and the reserve, the balance fund. All right, there's 3 capital projects for $723,039. All right, so that leaves, subtracting $723,000 from $3,632,494, will leave, I'm gonna just say $2.9 million. So I have a major problem with this type of accounting. So those 3 projects were not in the budget to say that's what they needed. All right? So where is the consent from the school board to allow the city to do this accounting for them? So next, where is this $2.9 million planning to be spent? All right? I have a real problem with this accounting system that y'all have. Nothing in details is given. And just like tonight, all this discussion could have been handled sooner. And I have not witnessed any business being done with economy and frugality in this city for a very long time. And all my presentations tonight have demonstrated the lack of communication, lack of teamwork, and lack of value of any human being, not only from this administration, whether elected or appointed.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion on the floor, which is to adopt the ordinance as is, unamended. Any further discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no.
No, that's wrong.
No, no, ma'am. We're voting, ma'am. We have a motion on the floor, and we're in the process. Let's reset the vote, please. Or is the vote complete? The vote is not complete. Councilman Battle. The motion carries 4-2. Okay. We now come to our next item. which is, Madam Clerk, boards and commissions, we have none. Items submitted by council members and Councilwoman Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to make the public aware of a few activities going on in the city before we meet again next year. These are holiday events. One of the most fun will be this Thursday, December the 12th. Our Children's Museum of Virginia in the 200 block of High Street on Thursday the 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. will have adult night. No children allowed. You can purchase an early bird ticket. This is for adults to go in and enjoy all the festivities, all the holiday decorations, the sock skating, play with all the fun stuff for adults only. On Saturday, we have a big day in the city. We have our Children's Parade, which will begin at Washington and High Street and go down High Street to the foot of High Street. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning in Old Town. Then we'll have all the festivities going on beginning as soon as the parade is over. We'll have our Old Town Holiday Music Festival. This is the 22nd annual Holiday Music Festival. There will be carolers and church groups and school groups singing up and down the first few blocks of High Street. The firefighters will be out there with the chimeneas roasting marshmallows. It's a really fun event. That's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., a wonderful family event. And at the same time, while you're downtown, Trinity Church, the oldest church in the city at High and Court Street, will be hosting their children's Christmas shop. Will be open on Saturday and Sunday. And only children are allowed to go inside and pick out $3 gifts for their parents. And there'll be help with gift wrapping and that sort of thing, and that's only for children. No adults are allowed in the Christmas gift shop. So happy holidays to all, and please enjoy all the festivities downtown.
Thank you. Our next report on pending items, Dr. Patton.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, we have no pending items tonight.
We now come to non-agenda speakers. We have 15. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll make it 6. We'll reconvene at 9 o'clock. We're in recess. City Council will come back into session. Madam Clerk, do we still have a quorum?
Yes, sir.
Will you read the protocol for, we're at non-agenda speakers, will you read the protocol for people who wish to speak?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will see a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 speakers at 5 minutes apiece, which is the time allotted. That's 75 minutes. We're going to try to do this as efficiently as possible. Council rules do not allow cheering or clapping as a person speaks. So please respect that rule. As a speaker speaks, let that person finish, and I'll call the next speaker. With that, our first speaker is John Lewis. Sir, if you'll come to the lectern, you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. I live in the Shea Terrace area, and I've lived in Portsmouth for 22 years. I am an independent voter. My vote cannot be bought by a special interest, and I'm not a member of the NRA or any other gun group. What I am concerned is for the citizens of Portsmouth. The governor and his legislators are proposing new gun legislation that is very extreme to the law-abiding citizens of Portsmouth. This legislation bills are a direct violation of the citizens of Portsmouth's U.S. and Virginia constitutional rights. If this bill passes, a very large percentage of Portsmouth will become instant felons. These legislative bills are direct. The citizens of Portsmouth have the right to bear arms to protect their families and their homes as promised in the Constitution. This extreme gun control legislation we fear is an act of tyranny to the citizens of Portsmouth. So as the citizens of Portsmouth, I ask you to be responsible, just as the thousands of law-abiding citizens of Virginia all across the Commonwealth are sending a message to Richmond. We will not be bullied. We ask that the City Council adopt a resolution in the City of Portsmouth to become a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Richmond has already bullied Portsmouth and our neighboring cities of Tidewater with bad decisions and bad legislation before, as we all know, as we pay dearly with these tunnel tolls. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Gary Bahina. Are you here, sir?
No, he's left, Mayor.
He left. Thank you. Our next speaker, Councilman Clark, you've asked for the floor.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. I want to go ahead and just make a statement after the first speaker because I know it's getting late, and I know a lot of people came out here for this very important topic tonight, and a lot of people might not be able to stay to the end. So I just wanted to respond to the first speaker, which just goes to all the speakers that are here in reference to the Second Amendment. I wanted to let everyone know that I totally support the Second Amendment. A couple things. I served in the United States Army, and the first sentence in the oath that I took to uphold for this country, it says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Then again, the first sentence of the oath I took to sit on this council, it says, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. That's the first sentence in both of those oaths, which I follow in another oath. I do have weapons, but part of that is my career choice. I have been in law enforcement for over 30 years now. So my daily operation in my profession, I carry a sidearm, and I also carry an AR-15, which is issued to me by my department. That is listed from the Homeland Security as a defensive weapon. The reason it is issued in the department that I work in is because we fall under Department of Homeland Security because so many of the targets that we have in our waterways locally in this area. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that I support your efforts, and I totally support the Second Amendment. And as your orange stickers say, that guns save lives, I wholeheartedly agree with that because unfortunately, in my career choice, I have been in a lot of tight situations. The use of deadly force can be done to protect myself or any other human that's in danger, and that's what I'm tasked with, and that's what I'm under an oath to do. I hope that day never comes, but I need that ability to do it. I think the same thing for your families. You should have the ability to protect yourself and protect your family, and that's what the Second Amendment authorizes. The reason being is the criminals don't follow the laws anyway. These law restrictions are only going to make criminals out of law-abiding citizens, which I don't agree with. My attitude is if they want to change some legislation, I think the emphasis should be put on the criminal violations, the criminals that are currently using weapons in their crimes, making stiffer penalties and minimum mandatory jail sentences. I think that's what needs to be addressed. So thank you all for coming tonight. I just wanted to say that at the beginning in case anybody had to leave. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Steve Carroll. And, sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council and staff. Steve Carroll, Portsmouth. In 2020, the Virginia legislature intends to impose a series of draconian laws affecting citizens' gun rights and the freedom of assembly, including but not limited to Senate Bill 16, 18, and 64. These proposed laws are patently unconstitutional. Consider these facts from the FBI and the Crime Prevention Research Center. Rifles account for approximately 2% of weapon-related homicides, Knives, hands, fists, feet, and blunt objects account for 19%. We have currently 18.6 million concealed carry permit holders from 2007 to 2019. That has increased 304%. Approximately 26.5% of permit holders are women. The overwhelming number of concealed carry holders are law-abiding citizens. Less than 1% of all permits have been revoked for any reason. The FBI this Black Friday ran 202,465 background checks. That is the second highest number on record since records were kept since 1998. And that is an 11% increase over last year. These statistics disprove the rhetoric of state and local anti-gun advocates who are misrepresenting the facts about anti-gun sentiment in Virginia and America. They falsely claim that Senate Bills 16, 18, and 16 will reduce crime. Instead, they will overnight turn many of us that are peaceful, law-abiding gun owners into felons. They are not motivated by crime reduction. Instead, they are motivated by their own political voyeurism and contempt for the Constitution of this country, which limits their lust for power. An American attorney, and Jeffrey Snyder puts it more succinctly, to ban guns because criminals use them is to tell the innocent and law-abiding that their rights and liberties depend not on their conduct, but on the conduct of the guilty and the lawless, and that the law will prevent them to have only such rights and liberties as the lawless will allow. For society does not control crime ever by forcing law-abiding people to accommodate themselves to the expected behavior of criminals. Society controls crime by forcing criminals to accommodate themselves to the expected behavior of the law-abiding. Sponsors of the unconstitutional laws will not make Virginia safer. They will, in fact, turn Virginia into a socialist, totalitarian police state. In 1776, the Bill of Rights was a model for the United States Bill of Rights. Article 1, Section 13, in part reads of the Virginia Constitution that a well and regulated militia composed of the body of people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. Therefore, the right of the people, not the militia, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. These key words should be weighed very heavily. The fallacious interpretation that the state militia was the only entity entitled to keep and bear arms has been rejected by the Virginia Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court in Heller versus District of Columbia and other Supreme Court rulings. The Bill of Rights affirms our God-given fundamental rights and protects each of us from the abuses of the minority or the majority and the elected who abuse their legislative authority. Our state and federal constitutions were the result of careful and deliberate consultation. Our framers would have put it in the Constitution if we were to be restricted or barred from carrying arms. Before you is a petition that is typical of those that have been submitted to many localities to become a sanctuary Second Amendment city. I ask you to consider that. I'm running out of time. Portsmouth must decide whether you're going to stand for tyranny or liberty. You must decide whether you're going to stand for rule of law or legislative thuggery from Richmond. Wish you would turn around and look at the sign behind you very briefly. Please. Look behind you. Look behind you, please. Thus always to tyrants.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Jason Ward, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Ward. I'm a Portsmouth resident. Was born here, lived here for 35 of my 40 years. I'm here to present you with a copy of the resolution that we're asking for. I don't really have a speech prepared. I'm not here to preach at you or yell at you or anything like that. I'm not coming here thinking you're automatically going to be against us, against what we're asking for. Actually, with 5 out of 7 of you with prior law enforcement or military backgrounds, I'd expect most, or if not all, to be with me. Going out and trying to rally people up to get the word out about this around Portsmouth, I've noticed that Portsmouth residents, a lot are either uninformed or underinformed about what exactly is going on. A lot of them know exactly what's going on and they're fired up. And the ones that have a little bit of an understanding of it definitely want to know more. So I'm trying to get the word out. So the resolution that we're asking for that's in your hands basically says that Portsmouth will not enforce any unconstitutional laws, federal or state, that infringe further on our rights, more than they already are right now. The big one that I'm worried about, I mean, all of them, if you go in and read the actual text of all these bills and all the stuff that is in them and really read it and see how it applies to you, even if you own a gun or not. The biggest one that I'm worried about is these the red flag laws. I know they were proposed in 2019. I expect to see them again coming up in 2020. Wanted to read something from Joe Dimmitt from USA Today had written, "The bedrock of America's legal system is all citizens guaranteed a due process before the government infringes on any of their legal rights. Red flag laws around the country skirt or even trample due process. Targets of the proposed gun confiscation orders are often unaware that such orders have been issued or even petitioned. Defendants are often unable to appear at a hearing or cross-examine witnesses. This is not just a violation of fundamental procedural rights. It has led to tragic outcomes. Police arriving unannounced at a gun owner's home demanding that he turn over his firearms as a recipe for tragedy. Second, once granted the power to confiscate firearms from citizens neither charged of a crime nor diagnosed with mental health problems, what is to stop government officials from abusing that power?" He goes on to say, finally, a study of an Indiana law allowing police to seize firearms from people they considered dangerous found outcomes closely correlated to defendants' presence at the hearing. This is concerning. It suggests that the upshot of red flag laws may be to disarm not dangerous people, but simply the less privileged, those who cannot afford to take off of work or who lack the means to hire good lawyers. And I'm sure there's plenty of those in Portsmouth. Like I said, a lot of us don't know exactly what's going on or have an idea, but I'm going to make it my mission to get the word out as much as possible, because like I said, people are fired up about this and want to know more. Another thing I want to touch on is mental health. There's items in these things that are wanting to take away your rights for if you've sought mental help within the past 5 years. My thing is, why would you punish people for seeking mental help if mental help is such an issue?
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Chandler LaSure. Excuse me for pronouncing your name. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, fellow Second Amendment supporters. My name is Chandler LeSueur, and I've been a Portsmouth resident for all my life. I'm gonna keep this short, sweet, and blunt. Making Portsmouth a Second Amendment sanctuary is probably the smartest thing we can do as Virginians to halt the nonsense from Richmond. For me, shooting's a great hobby. I really enjoy doing it. And for the governor to say, I'm gonna make rifles and pistols that hold more than 10 rounds legal, confiscate them or buy back, and if you don't, you're automatically a felon and you're going to jail and you'll never be able to vote or own a firearm illegally. Kind of makes me ashamed to be a Virginian. There are far more things that can be done to control violence rather than just taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. My first question to y'all is when all the citizens like me that have these so-called illegal weapons don't give them up, who's going to come and take them from us? The police department is already understaffed. I have a police scanner at home, so I hear that many of the officers got to stay over for overtime on day shift into the night. Well, financially, that's good for them, but emotionally, physically, that's going to drain them. And so when all of these, and all the citizens like me, we don't give them up, where are we going to go? The jail's falling apart, due for replacement, and all the controversy of the limited capacity. And my second question is, who is going to come and arrest us and take us to jail? When it comes to this, most officers would probably give up their badges and service weapons because they, like me, have these weapons as well, and they don't want them taken away. So all this so-called gun control is going to aggravate law-abiding citizens, and if I bought these guns legally, why should the government have a say-so in whether I can own them, how many rounds they hold, and etc. So all I have to say is, give me liberty or give me death, because I'm not giving up my guns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Tiffany Ducker. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Dockery. I'm a citizen of Portsmouth. And instead of stating a bunch of statistics and things, I wrote something that it's a piece that can be applied to literally everybody in Hampton Roads, not just us, but it speaks to me a lot just because I'm a citizen of Portsmouth. I am one of the 8.7 million people who reside in the state of Virginia. I am one of many. At the age of 18, I swore an oath and signed a dotted line to support and defend the U.S. Constitution and protect my country and enemies, or from enemies, both foreign and domestic. That has no expiration date. It still applies, even though I am now a veteran. Virginia is home to thousands of people who are active duty military retirees and veterans who firmly believe in and support the constitutions we hold close to our hearts. We live and breathe in the name of freedom, and we will stop at nothing to ensure that our rights are not taken from us. I am one of many. Presently, there are roughly a few 100,000 of citizens in Virginia who have legally obtained permits to conceal carry, not because they had to, but because they knew it was right. That was the law, and they had to obtain a permit if they wanted to conceal carry. Virginia is a constitutional carry state, and that is well known. Some choose to open carry, while others prefer to conceal carry for a variety of reasons, to include maintaining a silent presence or to prevent someone from feeling uncomfortable. Rough estimates equate there are more firearms that exist within the state of Virginia than the current population, yet shootings and incidents remain very low. Most gun owners follow the law, and being faced with their rights being taken away due to their actions of few. Ask any law-abiding gun owner if they would do whatever it takes to protect the innocent if met with an active shooter, and they will tell you that's the reason that they carry. I am one of many. Due to the current political injustice, your residents are coming to you and ask that you protect their rights. This discussion and a vote in favor of Second Amendment sanctuary resolution is the first step. Please consider this and your citizens and what this means for them. Our General Assembly will be provided with bills that will turn millions of law-abiding citizens into felons. Felons who cannot vote, who cannot own any gun at all, and who cannot hold a security clearance. Think about how many jobs in Hampton Roads rely on federal contractors, civil service workers, and active duty military. jobs that require active security clearances. Think about the employers who require background checks, which a felon cannot pass. The residents who fit this demographic are relying on you to make a stand, while you represent them in this unfortunate situation. I am one of many. If there's one thing to take away from our plea, it is this. Please grant us a Second Amendment sanctuary while we try to fight for our rights at the Capitol next month. Provide us the courtesy of not only allowing our city to be swept up in this tornado when there are those who plan to take this up in Richmond. Sorry. While the council may think it is an admission or acceptance of our Second Amendment rights, being labeled as unconstitutional, it's not. We know that this isn't what this is about, and Virginia residents are making a stand in localities all across the state, showing you what we want and what we believe in. Your residents need you to hear them, to give them the leg up in this fight, and I am one of many. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sergeant Major Clyde Toller, U.S. Marine Corps retired.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, good sergeant at arms, Dr. Patton, City Attorney, and Ms. White's staff. Good afternoon. Well, I'm not going to stay up until morning, but good afternoon. Also, happy holidays to each and every one throughout this city. I don't have to explain why I have this red patch on. I don't have to go through that. Because I've been carrying a weapon ever since I was 18 years old. World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. I served my country as a top enlisted man, and I served my country as an officer. I have always had a firearm, always carried one. I'll bring one up in here, too. You don't know I got one, but I have one. And I have a license to carry. And I know how to use a firearm. I know the safety of a firearm. And I want you to know I'm glad to see, Sergeant Arm, that you got a lot of backup here today, because this is the 6th floor. And if you mess up that elevator and set that stairway on fire, it's hey Geronimo, and I ain't jumping out up here. So I'd like to see, Police Chief, you send somebody to police in my neighborhood, because the last 4 months, haven't seen the police in my neighbors, they always calling me. But anyway, make yourself presentable in my neighborhood, okay? But anyway, I want to say to all of you, this has been a very, very good year. And oh, I forgot that I am Portsmouth proud, Clyde A. Toller. Have you seen me on TV?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm Portsmouth proud, and I'm very proud of that. And to be from Portsmouth, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but when I come back to 1st of January, when I come back, I'm not going to be so pleasant, because I have seen some things I think we need to change and all. I'm going to be respectful, because you're going to respect me too. I'm 93 and I'm looking at 94. So you know how that goes. I know you know, Mayor, but you keep quiet, don't tell her. But anyway, everybody have a happy holiday. Then I'm going to say good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim Evans, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. And again, thank you all for listening to all of us. And I do appreciate everyone that's here, and also the VCDL, who is an avid offender of the Second Amendment in the state of Virginia. But I'd like to say that, you know, every time we have the city council meeting, I pledge allegiance not only to the flag, but to the United States of America, which means I uphold the Constitution. And I'm going to keep it short, because with the previous gentlemen have spoken and the lady that have spoken, they have said it all for me. But I want to read a quote real quick, and it states, and I'm sorry, I'm old too, I got to get my glasses on. And it states, as a free people ought to not only be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from any who might attempt to abuse them, such as criminals, which would include their own government. And it wasn't NRA, it wasn't Charlton Heston, and it wasn't VCDL. It was actually George Washington who stated that. We need to follow his wisdom, because I watch Portsmouth closely. I watch our crime. It's growing in the city. We've got some issues that we have to deal with our police department and getting the amount of officers that we need and making our response times better. And here we are, our own state, and we elected a gentleman from the 80th district who supports gun control. And here we are, we're endangering our own city and the citizens here. And my fight is always for those who can't defend themselves. And when you have a woman that's 5'2" trying to defend herself against a guy that's 6'4" and 260, the gun equalizes it for her. And usually, and this is what always happens, all they have to do, the criminal, all they have to do is see that you're carrying a gun and they back off. And you never hear about the good things that happen. We always hear about the shooters. The other thing is just today on the news, I watched a woman get accosted in her car with her child in the car. And they were going to hijack the car and take the woman and the child away. She defended herself. And then finally her husband came and beat the guy up and got him arrested. But citizens came by. And I don't want us to infringe upon those rights for people in the city of Portsmouth. And I know this city well. And the neighborhoods are nice and tight. They watch out for each other. And when you have someone that is a criminal, that is willing to kill you, you need to have defense. And you need to have that defense in your home. And so I want to thank you for listening to me. But I would also ask that if you would affirm, not vote on, but just affirm that you would support the Second Amendment sanctuary city for Portsmouth. Would you do that? Now, you can answer. I'm not, it's not a rhetorical question. Would you be willing to do that? Just raise your hand. You don't have to say yes.
Sir, this is just for speakers, if you will continue.
No, I understand. I'd just like to get an idea of what I'm looking at. And I'm sorry that you can't do that. You don't have the freedom among the people that you serve, who elected you, who like you, to do so.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Cliff Page, and you have 5 minutes.
In 1776, the 12 colonies that had been under the reigns of Elizabeth, James I, Charles I, Cromwell, Charles II, William of Orange, and now George I, took up arms against England, their mother country. In 1776, Virginia declared itself a state, an act of treason, unlike in the Civil War, where Virginia had a right to secede. And in that breaking of the ties and the chains that had held them not as chains of evil, but their love and their mother country, they stood to be drawn and quartered and hung from the quarters of the castles of England. And they would have done it. In 1776, Virginia formed a constitution, a radical idea. And the history that Virginia had seen and the other colonies had seen that had gone on in Europe, particularly about religion and its wars since the Crusades, Christians and against Muslims, and then Christians against Christians. Now the Baptists from Switzerland, the oldest democratic nation in the world, in the New World, in Europe, came to Rhode Island, and they came to Virginia. And George Mason was a Baptist. And he persuaded others in the legislature, and later that went to the National Convention. And they put into the Constitution of Virginia the Bill of Religious Freedom. This is the first Bill of Rights. And this was in 1776, before we had really formed the first Confederacy. But by 1781, the war was over, and we formed a Confederacy. Then it lasted until 1787, and we decided that things weren't working well, and we decided to have a convention. And not everybody attended. In fact, 17% of the delegates from the states did not attend. And Virginia went up there to Philadelphia and was up there for 2 months with just a couple of states coming and going. But Virginia created a Virginia plan. And Virginia imposed its ideas of George Mason, who had persuaded Madison, who was the scrivener for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. He persuaded them that we needed a Bill of Rights. Why? Because of the history that Americans had realized that was not even on their shores, but they knew what had happened in England. They had seen what happened to Cromwell against the Episcopalians and the Protestants, and they ended up with Presbyterians, and it was a mess. They saw the restoration of Charles V, and they realized, and they said, George Mason said, we must have a Bill of Rights. Why? Because England has one, and we cannot trust anybody else. Rhode Island didn't even come to the convention. They were afraid that this was going to be some kind of tyranny. It was going to be a federalist situation. They didn't want any part of that. In fact, Patrick Henry refused to come. He thought it was going to be some kind of royalist takeover. He was asked to be a delegate. The Bill of Rights was adopted, and the first article in there had to do with speech and assembly and press, and the second had to do with arms and the rights of people to carry arms and to defend themselves. And those rights were not for hunting and fishing. They were to protect themselves against Indians, and they were to protect themselves against tyrants. And this is what happened in 1860. Virginia rose up, and this city rose up. After they took the shipyard, they rose up, and our men marched all the way to Manassas, and we turned back an invasion. And Baltimore did the same, with guns and with people and with rocks and stones and sticks, and they fought the federal troops moving through Maryland unconstitutionally. This is why we had a civil war. Now, we have a Second Amendment, and we should hold to that. These are natural rights. They started out as God-given, they're now natural rights.
Your time is up. Our next speaker is Laura McIntyre, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. First of all, I'd like to say that the lights look real nice on High Street, and the city looks really festive. I didn't know what I was going to say or even if I was going to get up and say anything, but it just hit me. I'm getting up here from my dad. He's been deceased for many years. I grew up in a house full of Democrats. I started a homeschool. I moved down here, Portsmouth, homeschooled my child, was a conservative Christian. They thought I was nuts. My mother to this day says, I hate Donald Trump. But then they started messing with gun rights. And my father flipped overnight because my father was many years at Camp Perry, the top #1 non-military competitive marksman in the country. We had a house full of guns. My best memories of my father was when I was a kid, and he taught me how to use a gun, how to clean a gun, how to be safe with a gun. I took the hunter safety course when I was 12. I scored -0. My dad missed 1, and my boy next door missed 2. So I'm up here for the girls. One of the people said 26% of gun owners are females. Do the math, that's 1 in 4. Why do you think females own firearms. I don't have one so I could rob the 7-Eleven. I don't have one because I want to go commit a crime. I have one because I'm a single mother. I don't have a dog anymore. I have a fish. My fish is a beta. Its name is Flappy Soaker. If a criminal comes in my house, my fish isn't going to protect me. Well, I'll tell you what, guns don't kill people, people do. And if somebody comes up in my house and the government decides to take my gun, I'm going to take them out with my frying pan, my rolling pin, my broomstick. But if they come in my house with a gun and the government decides we're going to take guns away from law-abiding citizens, read the bills. Okay, maybe the bill right now doesn't say we're going to take your gun. They're going to come to your house and take your gun. But I'll tell you what, they're talking about putting a casino in this town. The crime's going to go up. I've been living here for 26 years in Shea Terrace, and I hear gunshots. I stayed home one night. I usually go to church on New Year's Eve, but one night I stayed home on New Year's Eve. My daughter and I were huddled on the couch because it wasn't fireworks. It was gunshots going off all around the neighborhood. I will never stay home on New Year's Eve again. I will be in church because I was terrified that one of those stray gun bullets was going to come through my window. Do you think that if they pass legislation to take our guns, that they're going to take those criminals' guns? It used to be when those gunshots went off, a few minutes later, I would see red lights, sirens, police would come. Now I hear those same gunshots in my neighborhood, and I don't see any red lights, and I don't see any policemen come. So you all make budget decisions, your council. You make budget decisions with our tax dollars. Our tax dollars. Where are there police in my neighborhood to protect me? And if you can't send them, I darn sure want to have my gun. So if somebody comes in my house with a gun, I can protect myself and my children. I have that right as a United States citizen. It is my Second Amendment right. I think that's all I wanted to say. Oh, the demographics. I look around the room, and I don't see a whole lot of people with skin much darker than mine. This isn't a black and white issue. This microphone's black, my paper's white. But we're all different shades of brown. We all bleed red and we all pee yellow. This isn't a racial thing. It isn't a Louise Lucas thing. It is a thing where women need to protect themselves against somebody who has a gun, whether it's domestic violence or criminal. We have a right to protect ourselves. And if I choose to do so with a gun, that is my right. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I'll ask you to leave the chamber. Our next speaker is Joshua Lestick, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, council members. Thank you for your time. I could speak today on the same topics as others about infringements on human rights, the Second Amendment, tyranny, how gun control is ineffective, etc. But instead, I wish to speak simply about life. It is precious, it is fleeting, and it is fragile. To make my point, I will tell you a short personal story. When I was young, I thought I was invincible. My mind was occupied with frivolous things, and I rarely, if ever, contemplated bad things that could ever happen. At 21 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm 37 now. Thank God they caught it early, and after a year of debilitating treatments and medications, the cancer went into remission, and it stayed in remission. Had I not had medical insurance through my work, I would have been severely in debt, destitute, or even worse, dead, not able to afford the treatments to save my life. And I use this story as an example to the topic of this discussion. As a husband, a father, and in a constant effort to be a good person, I take an oath every day to protect my family and to be a defender of the innocent of those people around me. My firearms are an insurance policy afforded to me by my Creator, because the lives of my wife, my daughter, friends, and neighbors are precious to me and deserve to have the utmost protection, because bad things do happen. I have invested and trained to keep and bear firearms responsibly for the safety of my family and my community, just like everybody in this room and millions of other Virginians. Richmond's new legislation would effectively ban every single common firearm that I own. You rarely think that anything bad could happen to you, that criminals will always pick a different person to become their victim, that criminals will pick another house to break into, that the criminals will pick another family to inflict violence on, that they will pick a different Walmart than the one you are shopping in. Criminals do not abide by the law, and we see their horrible acts of criminal violence happen in the world every day on the news. You never think it could happen to you, and maybe it never will, and I pray that it never will. But for that slim chance that it could, I will have my insurance policies to make sure that my family has the best possible chance to live long, healthy, beautiful lives. Richmond cannot keep us safe, and the laws they're proposing would make us felons for simply trying to have the best possible equipment insurance to protect our loved ones with. Equipment that, mind you, we already own and use safely and responsibly. Sanctuary cities are a symbol, a shining beacon to those whose freedoms are under attack by those in Richmond, who violate their oath of office and infringe on our unalienable human rights. I hope and pray that you will stand with us. Stand with the Constitution of this great country. Stand with us to defend our human rights and freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dan Evans, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, there used to be something called Virginia Democrats, and unlike National Democrats, they were pro-life, physically responsible, and pro-Second Amendment. I don't know where they lost their life, but one of the last Virginia Democrats I knew was Johnny Joanna, who has passed, and he was very strong Second Amendment and a very strong fiscal conservative. During the last few elections, money from out of state has come in to support Democrats that are neither physically responsible nor Second Amendment supporters. In some races, as much as 75% of the donations came from out of state. A lot of those dollars came from Michael Bloomberg, who not only wants to grab our guns, but also our big gulps. People who follow him think that if we just made guns illegal, America would be a safer place. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Second Amendment is not just for hunting, it is also for self and family protection. And most importantly, the founders wanted to protect us from tyrannical leaders who would trample the Constitution and rule with an iron fist. What I'm saying, there are tyrants in Richmond who want to do just that. The Virginia motto, Sic Semper Tyrannis. The idea that tyrants always meet a dire end, which is just and should be expected. Please use this as a rallying cry to let those in Richmond who think they can make laws that go against the U.S. Constitution. It is time to stop. The Declaration and the Constitution were written with great input from many great Virginians. We cannot let Virginia legislators tarnish that. Let them know that there are still Virginia Democrats that vote in Portsmouth and that help put y'all in office. Other outside money, George Soros, has helped elect prosecutors across the country, including Portsmouth, who make criminals out of police trying to keep the peace. But that is a story for another night. Our prosecutor has single-handedly caused police morale and enlistment to be at an all-time low. This means the people of Portsmouth need to protect themselves now more than ever. Don't allow Richmond to take one of those protections away. Rights come from God, not Richmond. Help us keep our rights to bear arms and to protect ourselves and our families. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to leave. The next speaker is Michael Deal, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry for the sore throat. I can't talk too
You're
good,
fine.
but I'll make this short. My name is Michael Deal. I'm a resident of Portsmouth. My wife and I are both legal gun owners. We both have concealed permits. We feel we have the right to protect our home, our property, and our loved ones. In January, my son is coming to move in with my wife and I, and he gave us our first granddaughter. I'd like to be able to protect my granddaughter from anyone who might break in my house or anything like that. That's not happened yet, but not to say it wouldn't. We've been given these rights by our forefathers, and I believe that Richmond is trying to take that from us. Now, I live legally. I've never been in trouble. I've paid my taxes the way I'm supposed to. I work hard. My wife works hard. I believe that we have the right to protect ourselves, and I believe the city should protect us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mark Godalgi-Yatrowski, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. For the last time in 2019, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties, there is nothing that will ignite passion quicker than talk of restricting gun rights. I'm not sure why it has that effect, but it does. And I recognize that there are many people in this room who are responsible gun owners. But there are many others who are not. And I believe that we can do more to improve the safety of citizens in this Commonwealth, in this city, and in this nation through legal means that do not involve the confiscation of guns, that do not involve the repeal of the Second Amendment. It is my hope that the people in Richmond will take a common sense approach, although common sense, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that term because common sense is not common these days, that they will take a reasoned approach and that they will do things that improve everyone's safety. I am a veteran of the U.S. Navy. I have fired weapons as part of my duties in the military. I've never fired one in anger or in self-defense. I've only shot on a range. I've carried a carbine on watch. And I know there are a lot of places in this country where you can't pick up the phone and expect the police to arrive in a matter of moments. There is a justification for people who live in such places to be able to defend themselves. So it is my wish, and it is a wish that I will convey to my legislators, that we need to ensure that people who are responsible gun owners are not threatened by legislation that is draconian. But we need to ensure that our children can go to school and not end up as casualties. We need to ensure that people like my cousin, who went to a concert in Las Vegas, does not become a target of somebody who shouldn't have had a gun. We need to improve the way we deliver mental health services in this country, and we need to ensure that people with mental health issues do not carry guns. So I am looking forward to reasonable measures emanating from Richmond that will provide us better protection from those people who are the exceptions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dawn Bachman, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Look, and everybody behind me that agrees with making Portsmouth a Second Amendment sanctuary, please stand. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here to ask the Portsmouth City Council to vote yes for this city to become a Second Amendment sanctuary city. We are very safe in this building right now. If you look around you, you will see armed police officers here to protect us. I would like to have and continue to have that same safety as I return home tonight and sleep in peace, knowing that I'm able to protect myself if I so choose to bear arms, but not if the red flag laws are in place in 2020. In 2020, the Virginia legislature will impose unconstitutional gun laws which will infringe on my gun rights and freedoms. I hold dear our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Red flag laws will permit and will permit confiscation and removal of someone's firearms, for example, if an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend, co-worker, angry neighbor tells the police that they are presenting a danger to themselves or others without any proof. That is lying and stealing under false pretenses and will take thousands of dollars and years to get your stuff back, your property returned, because somebody lied about you. That's what the Senate Bill 16 would do. Do you really want our already overburdened police to enforce these ridiculous laws? They already have enough on their plate with the crime, gangs, and narcotics, which will only continue to spike if the casino is pushed through, but that's another story. These laws will take away a woman's right to choose. Gun rights are women's rights. An armed woman levels the playing field to a would-be home invasion, an attempted rape, or assault. A single woman, a single mother, a wife whose husband is deployed should be able to protect themselves and their families. SB 18 would prevent this. In May of this year, Kate Nixon reported to her husband, Jason, she knew her co-worker was unstable and felt he would shoot up the place. Her husband encouraged her to take a pistol to work for protection, but she obeyed and followed the rules of the no gun zones policy, which was designed to keep her safe. And she along with her beloved co-workers and bystanders were murdered the very next day in the Virginia Beach tragedy. No gun zones don't work. You're a soft target to criminals who don't care about the law. I wanted to ask you, have you seen the new Harriet Tubman movie? This extraordinary woman exercised her Second Amendment rights against the men pursuing her, and the rest is history that you know. That scene says it all for me. She was protecting herself and her loved ones. That's what I'm trying to communicate with you tonight. These gun laws pushing through in 2020 will infringe the rights of everyone, men and women of every color, all Americans. Do you not remember just a few generations ago, the Democrats formed the Ku Klux Klan, who pushed through the Black Code laws, preventing and restricting freed slave families from owning firearms to protect themselves. The Democrat KKK lynched and killed innocent people. Many KKK members were shot and killed by armed freemen. Thus, the Black Code laws, they were pushed through into law. The KKK were able to continue their acts of terror by disarming the black community. Do you remember Martin Luther King Jr.? He was denied a concealed carry permit. His Second Amendment rights were infringed as well. I work in Portsmouth. I've walked into my office to find it all shut up, glass everywhere. I personally know 2 people who were murdered this year in Portsmouth. Please don't tell me to take this up with Richmond. I already plan to do that. I'm asking you to be bold. You have the power to stop these ridiculous laws from being enforced on Portsmouth citizens in 2020. I'm asking you to vote yes for a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That is our last speaker. This concludes our meeting. On behalf of City Council, we wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. Dr. Patton, are you asking for the floor?
Yes, blue or red? Blue, okay. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I wanted to take a moment to thank Deputy City Manager LaVoice Pace, Mr. Mark Pomachek, who have worked so hard to beautify our city for the holidays, and all of the decorations you see here, single-handedly, Mr. Pace put these decorations up. So on behalf of their hard work, I thank them, and I'm sure you all appreciate it.
We thank you. This concludes our meeting. This meeting is adjourned with a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.